Hello everyone, welcome to the next class on food testing lab regulations. Introduction. Key global food safety concerns include spread of microbiological hazards, chemical food contamination, and other related hazards. Includes assessment of rapidly changing technologies in food production, processing, and marketing. Increasing scientific understanding of the adverse consequences of unsafe food, amplified by the rapid global transmissions of information, has heightened the consumer awareness about food safety risks to a new level. Microbiological hazards, contaminants in the form of pesticides and heavy metals, and addition of adulterants, which is nothing but substitution of cheaper raw materials or look-alike ingredients to intentionally debase the quality of the product, and antibiotics in high doses to gain a competitive economic advantage are the major food safety concerns. There are national standards for both domestic and export trade lay down parameters for pesticide residues, antibiotics and veterinary residues, including even the heavy metals, mycotoxins, pathogens and other contaminants. Therefore, a basic food analytical laboratory is an imminent need for ensuring the safety and quality of the food as well as for reliable results related to the food quality. So in this video, we will be learning about the various requirements for a food testing lab given by the regulations. So under the regulations, what are the requirements a food testing lab required to have in detail we will be seeing in this video. What is a laboratory? So basically a food testing laboratory or any laboratory performs these activities like which include testing, calibration and even sampling procedures. Now, what are the types of analysis that are carried out in a basic food analysis and testing laboratory? Although a diverse array of sophisticated analytical equipments and techniques exist for food analysis and testing, the most common food testing includes microbiological and chemical analysis. Under that, we have classified it into gender parameters or nutritional parameters, then microbiological parameters and food additives and contaminants. So all this part are in a broad way it is classified into microbiological and chemical analysis. So under the general parameters, we generally analyze for moisture, ash, alkalinity or acidity, and total soluble solids and extraneous matter. Whereas the nutritional parameter analysis include total fat, total protein, amino acids of crude fiber, vitamins and energy value. Then the microbiological parameters for the food include total plate count, the most commonly total plate count, coliform count, aerobic plate count and yeast and mold. And then for food additives and contaminants include for color, antioxidants, preservatives, artificial sweetener and heavy metals. Now let's see what are the major components of a food laboratory. This includes first selection, identifying the building facility and the construction part for the laboratory. Then developing an organizational structure and the management and assigning the responsibilities for the organization. Then selection of the analysis that has to be carried out for the food products. Then selection and purchase of equipments as well as chemicals most importantly. Then appointment and maintaining qualified analysts, food analysts or technicians or technical officers, then skilled and unskilled staff also. Then establishing standard operating procedures and working procedures for each of the tests. Then establishing a quality assurance system that's based on the ISO 17025, which we have seen in the previous class, and then obtaining the NABL accreditation. Now coming to the various stages of an analytical process in a regulatory food analysis and testing laboratory, So here the process basically begins with the receipt of the samples from the food safety officer or designated officer or food business operator with the request for the food analysis. And once the samples are received, and the security and appropriate storage of the sample is initiated, and it is followed by the sample preparation and analysis. Then the after the analysis, the results of the tests are collected and is verified, and then following the approval from an authorized person, a final report is dispatched to the food safety officer or designated officer, or even if it is from the request of a food business operator, it is even dispatched to the food business operator. These are the various stages of an analytical process taking place in a food testing lab. Now, the specific requirements as per the National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibrating Laboratories (NABL) requirements for a food testing lab includes the calibration provided by NABL accredited laboratory is required, comma, certified values of CRM. We have seen certified reference materials are provided by an accredited reference material producer with stated metrological traceability to the SI from NMI such as CSIR, National Physics Laboratory, etc. Coming to the laboratory organization, the structure or the skeleton structure for the organization of a typical regulatory food analysis laboratory is as followed or as given in the uh, figure. That is, it is headed by a head or chief food analyst, and then the other personnel involved are analytical staff, administrative staff, and support staff. So basically, under the analytical staff in general, even the head or chief food analyst will also be part of the analytical staff. Then there are senior food analysts, junior analysts, technical officers, and technical assistants. To talk about the head or chief food analyst of the laboratory, he or she should be a person, preferably with PhD in science, like it can be from chemistry or microbiology or biochemistry or food science related subjects, with 5 to 10 years of hands-on experience in the food analysis, or he or she should be a qualified food analyst with a minimum of 15 years of experience in an established food testing and analysis laboratory. So the head or the chief food analyst should be a dynamic person with strong interpersonal skills, as he or she is the head of the food laboratory, and should be well versed with the analytical procedures, which can be both chemical as well as microbiological, and then instrumentation and quality assurance that is required for the regulatory compliance. Head or the chief food analyst will be responsible for the laboratory safety and good housekeeping practice, and ensures that the lab has necessary chemicals, that is in the required quantity in the stock, and functional instruments that are sufficient for the various analysis to be conducted. Now to talk about the senior food analyst. So the senior food analyst comes or works under the head or the chief food analyst. So each analytical section should be preferably headed by a senior food analyst. Overall head of the laboratory is chief food analyst, whereas the analytical section is headed by a senior food analyst. This person should be having a qualification, preferably with MSc in chemistry or microbiology or biochemistry, with minimum of 5 years experience in food analysis for specific category of tests like include chemical and microbiological or both. Whereas the junior analyst is responsible for performing the analytical work following the SOPs under the directions of the senior food analyst. Then the essential qualifications for a junior analyst include MSc in chemistry or biochemistry or analytical chemistry or food science or food technology, and he should be a person who's with post graduation, and FSSA certified food analysts are usually preferred for this post. And this junior analyst should have knowledge of basic chemical reactions and principles of the methods that is being used. Then there are technical officers as well as technical assistants as well. So the technical officers should be able to carry out the chemical and microbiological analysis in the food, who should be responsible for maintaining of the logbook, documents, data records, and documentation of all the technical activities as per the quality manual and existing regulations. Then to talk about the technical assistants, they are personnel with qualification of even high school graduation, having studied chemistry or biology, and he or she should be able to carry out the routine laboratory tasks. They can be trained in tasks such as sample grinding, sieving or mixing, subsampling or media preparation or autoclaving, etc. They should have familiarity with the use of weighing balances, pH meter, preparation of the reagents, and they should be familiar with the chemical names, expiry date, purity of the chemicals, etc. are essential for the post. Then coming to the administrative staff, the administrative staff includes all the administrative assistants such as general administration, finance and accounts, stores and purchase, secretary, typing and filling, etc. These staff are generally involved in office or paperwork functions such as looking after the office, finance and purchase, or store procedures and maintaining the record of samples, preparation of test reports, maintenance of accounts, etc., and the overall general welfare of the employees. Now coming to the support staff include mainly the operational head for the instrumentation, then technician or technicians for instrument and general maintenance and laboratory attendants. So the operational head for instrumentation will be responsible for the upkeep and optimal functioning of specific equipment and operating methods, who should be for especially involved in troubleshooting, maintenance, and solving the problems, as well as continuous training of junior staff when it is required. Then the technicians for instrument and general maintenance shall have a diploma in electronics or electrical or instrumentation engineering with 2 years of experience in the operation and maintenance of state-of-the-art equipment. Alternatively, a graduate in instrumentation engineering may also be considered. And then finally, there are laboratory attendants, who are persons working in and for the laboratory but not conducting the analysis, but they are involved in the and are not involved in any administrative duties. They are There are no prescribed educational qualifications for this post, but they must be literate and should be able to read and write with the ability to support the food analyst or chemist or technical officers through glassware washing, cleaning and housekeeping, sterilization, disposal of the sample reserves, pest control and other laboratory activities. These are the people involved in the overall laboratory organization. So this is how the skeleton structure of the organization of a food analysis laboratory. Now moving on to the laboratory building requirements and design that is provided under the regulations. It's a elaborative section where we need to see in detail about what are the general requirements, then the laboratory building and facilities, how should be the storage, laboratory and personal safety, lab furniture and waste disposal. We'll see each section in detail. Talking about the general requirements, the laboratory should be located in an area with some basic facilities, including good infrastructure, good access to the road system with assured potable water and uninterrupted power supply. That is a basic need. Then the regulatory laboratory should be secure to provide for confidentiality and be accessed only by the authorized personnel. It should be adequately equipped with essential services and utilities, good ventilation. Lighting should be there, safety systems such as fire control measures, secure and protected storage for records, including computer backup and water and gas supplies. The laboratory must provide a safe and healthy working environment which complies with the comfort, energy efficiency, energy conservation, and impact on the environment. These are the general requirements that needs to have in a laboratory. Moving on to the laboratory building and facilities. Under the laboratory building and facilities, there are uh, explanation in terms of the laboratory layout, sample receipt and registration, then sample storage room, primary sample processing and subsampling preparation, wet chemistry lab, and the microbiology lab. So to talk about the laboratory layout, the laboratory is generally designed on the basis of the analysis that is to be carried out and the methods to be used and keeping in mind the future analytical requirements and expansions. Laboratories are required to have separate zones or rooms depending on the type of the analysis and the functionality. The separation of laboratory space to perform various activities is primarily required to avoid cross-contamination with undesirable substances and to maximize the use of space. Then, about the sample receipt and registration, an area convenient for courier personnel or postman and delivery personnel to deliver the sample is required. Most often, this room is at the entrance of the laboratory. The sample receipt and registration room is at the entrance of the laboratory usually. Sample should be received through a large window and all the communication should be carried out through this route alone. Here, the samples are logged into a booking system first, which is either done manually or with a register using LMS, LIMS or LMN software. The sample is then given a unique identification number by the laboratory. The requested analysis by the FSO is logged in the sample register. The sample parcel is then opened under CCTV surveillance and all the information about the sample package including number of seals, packaging material is recorded and then it is passed to the primary sample processing and subsampling section. And if the analysis cannot be processed, if it is stored under appropriate conditions as well. Then next is the sample storage room. The storage of the sample after receipt, the sample has to be stored. Storage of the sample must not alter the sample in any nature, whether through contamination or loss or deterioration or any other means. The physical security of the sample prevents intentional adulteration and alteration of the sample. Therefore, entry to the storage area should be restricted to only to the authorized personnel. Maintenance of proper storage temperature is very important to maintain the integrity of the sample or analyte to be analyzed. This room should also be under the CCTV surveillance. Next is about the primary sample processing and subsampling preparation area. So the analytical samples are prepared by grinding the laboratory sample. Homogeneity of sample is achieved with grinding in mills or homogenizers or coffee grinders or a suitable equivalent device depending on the size and the structure of the sample to be tested. In case where the laboratory sample is a flour or liquid, homogenization is not required, but mixing or shaking must be still required. This section must have an independent room interconnected to the sample received room, where subsampling, blending, grinding, and if necessary, pre-drying can be performed. If necessary, an air extraction unit can also be utilized to remove the odor as well as excess heat. Next uh, section is wet chemistry lab, where the digestion, filtration, distillation, titration or extraction, derivatization and dilution are all the unit operations that has been carried out. Independent laboratory rooms can be provided for independent activities. In each lab, a separate area must be designed for acid use and storage. Also, a separate area for flammable solvents and storage must be identified. A separate area for flammable solvents should also be identified. This area requires access to water and should be close to glassware supplies, balance, fume hood and chemical supplies. Then comes the microbiology lab. The microbiology lab and support equipments such as autoclaves or laminar airflow or biosafety cabinet, etc., and other glasswares should be dedicated and physically separated from other areas. There should be adequate suitable space with separate storage locations, for example, biological indicators, reference cultures, and media, etc. The lab should be away from the restrooms and to prevent any sort of cross contamination. The air supply to the microbiology lab should be through separate air handling units and other provisions. Temperature and humidity must be maintained. The quality of the air that is supplied to this laboratory should be as per the ISO specifications and not be a source of contamination. Laboratory equipment used in microbiology lab should not be used outside the defined microbiology area or space. Next, we will discuss about the storage. Under the storage, there is specifications for the chemical storage in the laboratory or the bulk storage, as well as gas cylinder storage and gas lines. Then about the laboratory and personal safety. The first section is about safety equipment. Then safety design in the labs and electrical services and safety. To talk about the safety equipment, the availability and the use of a number and type of safety equipment is essential and it should be presented in the well marked, highly visible and easily accessible locations or in locations in or near the laboratory rooms in the facility and must be maintained in the working conditions. There should be safety and emergency equipments like fume hoods, hand wash facility, hand free eye wash stations, safety showers that conform to the various standards, fire extinguishers, fire blankets, emergency lights, emergency signs, etc. First aid kits, all that is required. Then what is meant by safety design in the labs? So here in most of the cases, labs should be organized with the highest hazard, that is farthest from the entry door and the least hazardous element closest to the door. So it should be the way in which the lab should be arranged or organized. Then write-up desks and benches should be accessible without having to the cross in front of the fume hoods. All safety equipment such as emergency showers or eye washes, first aid kits and the spill kits should be readily accessible. Then an emergency center in a central location on each floor provides easy access for everyone, and this center should have a reagent neutralizers or spill kits and first aid kit, etc. All those are how the safety designs that should be there in a lab. Then to talk about the electrical service and safety, in a laboratory, a wide variety of electrically powered equipment including stirrers, shakers, pumps, hot plates, heaters, power supplies, oven and others are being used. So there are guidelines that should be given for each of the electrical services in the laboratory. Then there are sections about the lab furniture. Under the lab furniture, and the regulations have specified about the work table. The working surface should be hard or non-corrosive and non-absorbent, and the surfaces must be compatible with any chemical likely to be used in the laboratory and must be impervious to water. Then it should be resistant to acids, alkalis, solvents, and disinfectants, and it should be easy to clean. The bench tops should be of seamless design, and if the bench top is placed against a wall, it should be covered or have a backsplash against the wall. Typical bench depth will have about 60 to 90 centimeters for easy access to the rear of the bench. Then finally, under the regulation, they have specified about even the waste disposal. So it is the clear responsibility of the head or the chief food analyst and all the analysts of the laboratory to ensure the safe and correct disposal of all the waste, especially which are being produced during the analysis. So waste must be categorized by its identity, constituents, hazards, so that it may be safely handled and managed. Improper or irresponsible disposal of chemical waste down drains or into the atmosphere is forbidden. So about chemical waste can be in the form of solvents, or it can be in the form of aqueous solutions or dry powders and unwanted old chemicals. So there are procedures and then guidelines for the proper disposal of chemical waste, specifically for salts, inorganic salts, alcohols, uh, etc., specifically for different types of chemicals. So we need to follow these guidelines for the proper disposal of the chemical waste. Then about the biological waste, each of the individual laboratory may negotiate a contract with a commercial firm which is licensed by their respective state pollution control board to remove the transport of biological waste to a designated disposal site for incineration. And for safety reasons, all the disposable petri dishes used for inoculation and enumeration of the microorganisms should be autoclaved or steam sterilized to inactivate the microorganisms. And once it is autoclaved, the waste can be safely disposed of. So all these are the disposal ways for the biological waste. So these guidelines has also to be followed for the proper waste disposal. So these are the main important things that is given under the laboratory building requirements and designs under the regulations. So we have seen about general requirements, laboratory building and facilities, storage and laboratory and personal safety, and even lab furniture and waste disposal, which has to be learned in detail. Apart from that, we have learned about how the skeleton structure of an organization in a laboratory is like, who is the head, and who are the supporting staff in terms of the analytical staff, administrative staff, and other general staff for the support. Then the various stages or the procedure that is taking place in an analytical lab, as well as the common types of analysis that are being carried out. So these are the most important things in the food testing lab regulations, and this has to be complied by all the food testing lab as per the regulation. So that's all about this section. Hope everyone understood. Thank you.